All right. Welcome, everyone, to our SIG webinar, ACP SIG webinar, A Realist's Guide to Business Continuity. I am Dr. Bernard Jones, humbled to be on the ACP National Board. And back in 2024, we launched this ACP SIG, or Special Interest Group Initiative. It's been wonderful, fantastic, been able to share information across different SIGs, uh, as demonstrated in today's webinar. I just want to give you a heads up. Uh, Today's webinar is sponsored or targeting our education SIG. Next week, we have a healthcare SIG roundtable, a panelist discussion on healthcare resilience. Following that in August, our government SIG will tackle continuity of operations, modernization in distributed workforce. We are nimble. We've got a SIG each month going forward. Just want to mention this to you. In September, Michelle Turner will be discussing, and the title of her SIG webinar is Color Me Resilient, the ABCs of Bouncing Forward. They allowed me to do one of these. I'll come in October. My topic is on the value of AI to assist with emergency planning, training, exercises. I call it taking the classroom from the classroom to the simulation lab. And then we're going to round out the year, November and December, with an entry from our cybersecurity SIG, as well as our banking and finance. But again, we bring this SIG information to you because it's been such a great value add to the ACP. And so we're so happy you're here to join us today for this SIG. Before I introduce Vanessa, our speaker today, I wanted to mention our great partnership with Continuity Insights. We got Neil Eisenberg in the background working the controls. And then I wanted to introduce Mike Giannakis. He's here to help facilitate the Q&A. He's going to talk a little bit at the end. But we've had such a tremendous partnership. And without Continuity Insights, their guidance and support with these SIGs and these webinars, they facilitate them, they do the marketing. So hats off to them, and it's a great partnership. And again, excited for today's session. So with that, I want to introduce Vanessa Lewis. Quite an extensive bio, so I'm going to just get right to the beginning of this. I'm going to read it here. Vanessa Lewis, MBCP, is the Chief Business Continuity Officer for Dallas College, where she leads enterprise-wide emergency management business continuity and operational resilience efforts across a large multi-campus public higher education system. Her work centers on governance, readiness, incident coordination, and the development of standardized, scalable frameworks that support consistent emergency management practice across complex organizations. And I'm going to get this grid out to everybody so you can see what I just mentioned, all the SIGs that are coming up. We hope you can join us. Last but not least, some housekeeping. Would love for you to use the Q&A portion of this if you have any questions, and we'll be nimble to look for that, and then we'll have some time at the end as well. And yes, we will be sending the slides out after the presentation. With no more delay, I turn it over to Vanessa. Thank you so much for facilitating and leading our webinar, Vanessa.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Howdy, y'all. I'm Vanessa Lewis, obviously from Texas. I apologize if I'm a bit nasally. I just came from a trip to Boston where I got inundated with the smoke from Canada and then came home to just regular allergy season here. So I can only hear out of one ear and my nose is doing crazy things. So I want to preface this presentation by saying that I am very relaxed, go with the flow in the way that I present. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll see if we can't get you able to talk. This is kind of a new thing that we're trying. But if not, certainly use the Q&A section and we will get to your questions there as well as having time at the end. So I will tell you that I developed this presentation mainly from an emergency manager getting stuck with business continuity, tasks in mind. But I do think there's good takeaways here from everybody. So if anything doesn't seem like it fits or anything like that, you want to speak up, please do. All right, let's go. So the first thing is just kind of our quick agenda. We want to frame business continuity and its importance, talk about the challenges in achieving effective continuity, talk about our real world experiences and why a human centered framework works best for what we do. And then there's going to be an applied reflection and discussion that will probably, if we can make the system work where y'all can talk, that's great. Otherwise, we can just move the Q&A to the end and then talk about some practical takeaways that hopefully, again, will kind of come closer towards the end. So if it works out, this is meant to be an interactive session. I see myself as a learner alongside everybody. The room is going to contain expertise that I don't have. There's no wrong answer. Silence and reflection are always welcome. And again, if we can manage it, interjections and shared examples are highly encouraged. And I will also tell y'all, I tend to present quickly, so I'll try to slow it down. All right, so let's move on to the first section. All right, so those who are assigned business continuity planning, often that it doesn't start out that that's their primary role. I will tell you, I came into this industry as an emergency management specialist. And the whole reason I got into business continuity is because I had a conversation with my VP at Children's Health, and I knew what business continuity meant. And that was it. I was the one that got the task. I didn't know what it was, but I knew what the words meant. I had heard them before. What I found in my own research and having to figure this out is that successful continuity depends highly on the people and the relationships you build and on understanding rather than the tools. And I say that again because I started off, as many of us probably did, doing these plans on pen and paper. We did not have the fancy, different software that we all have today. But again, what I found out was that human insight and cooperation were absolutely crucial. Even as I have gotten better tools, nothing can replace those relationships you build and the things that you learn when dealing with these different departments that you have to work with. All right, so let's talk challenges. Off the top of your head, if anyone can speak up, can you present me with the challenges you see in achieving effective continuity? This is our quick test. Let's see if it works. Any hands going up?
Oh, right. Yeah, we have a couple here. Let's
Okay.
go to Jennifer.
Jennifer, go ahead. Oh,
No? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Let's. Oh,
okay, I
yes.
can hear you.
Sorry, it was a delay on this end trying to get unmuted. As far as challenges, I would say it's participation and having the right you know leadership to have the buy-in to carry it down culturally so that you get the right subject matter experts putting in and participating in a regular basis. I would say is probably top three.
Absolutely a great one. Did anyone else have their hands up?
Yeah, let's see. Tasha.
Me?
Yes.
Tasha, go ahead.
Awesome. I would say our challenge is speaking the same language that everyone else speaks. Quite often, IT has their own language, the business operations team have their own language, and sometimes varying language within the different organizations at the company. And then we, as business continuity or business resilience professionals, we have a totally different language. So getting all of those in line can be truly, truly challenging.
Absolutely. And I'll throw these out here, just quick challenges that I had thrown in here. Organizational buy-in, how many of the higher ups don't understand what it is that we're doing and what we bring to the table, and therefore don't want to spend money on us, don't want to give us those resources. Additionally, I have run into some people who essentially say, oh, we have such and such software and we just send out the BIA or just send out and don't actually have those face to face meetings or Zoom meetings or whatever it is, but they just kind of send out the checklist and, wait to get it back. So that over reliance on those tools.
And Vanessa, I had one more. Looks like
yeah, go ahead.
Lisa Tabor wrote in the Q&A, funding.
Funding. Absolutely. Like I just said, the resources, the buy-in, the things, all of us are constrained with that. So absolutely. The other thing that we look at are a lack of authority. So how many of us are not the decision makers, and it's hard to get those decision makers in the room. We've also got time constraints. I have had a boss once tell me that she wanted 40 plans in about 6 weeks. What? And these were brand new, never built plans. Sector-wide challenges. So I think Tasha said the lack of understanding, the lack of speaking the same language that hinders that collaboration. So these are all great suggestions here. So let's talk about our real world experiences, and I'll just jump into mine. And I like to bring up that I didn't come in straight to emergency management out of college. I took the long route, the detoured route to get through college and into emergency management. And I started off in public safety. I was a police and fire dispatcher for about 17 years. During my last year, actually, in emergency communications, my city experienced a ransomware attack. And what that looked like from my end was I was staring at my CAD with all of my officers on it. And all of a sudden, all of the officers just disappeared from my screen, all their units and calls they were on and everything. And every now and then, computers go down. Our mobile, the mobile terminals they have in their cars go down. That's not that big of a deal. We kind of just rolled our eyes and said, oh, the computers must have gone down. And then the officers, start telling us one by one, oh, my computer's down. I'm going to CIT. And when about 5 of them kept saying they were all going to IT, we're like, oh, the system just must be down. We started trying to call the city departments for various things, talking to, our warrant section over in the courts, things like that. And every line we tried to call for the city was going to a fast busy. And so we kept trying more and more and more, and nobody was answering. And soon enough, we heard they were all locked out of the network completely. Phones were not working at all because they were voice over IPs. Essentially, the city was entirely crippled. Fortunately for us, a few years prior to this, the dispatch center had been made into a regional center. So we were on a completely separate system. So 911 capabilities were not taken away, and our CAD remained up. So we could still see, we could still get calls, dispatch calls, all of that. So what gets me here, where the business continuity comes into this, and mind you, at this point in my life, I didn't know what business continuity was. But we had a sergeant call in, and he got a hold of me. And the first thing he said when I answered the phone was, "Thank God it's you, Vanessa." And the reason he said that was because, like I said, we were a regional dispatch. He could have gotten somebody from any of our other 3 cities that didn't understand Carrollton, or he could have gotten a brand new dispatcher who really didn't understand the way any of the 4 cities worked in depth. So there was trust in me there. And then the second thing he said is, I don't know what to do. We can't even get into log into the network to get up a Word program to handwrite a report or a narrative or anything. And I went back into my own personal Wayback Machine in my head when I first started in 2003. And I bring up 2003 because it was well past the point that we should have had these. But when I first started in 2003, the officers there filled out their reports on a carbon copy form. I'm sure there are people in this call that don't know what carbon copies are, but a lot of us older people, we all remember them. So they had to fill out these forms on carbon copy. They had to physically bring it into dispatch where we could enter, stolen items, missing persons, things like that into the national database for them. So that was the first thing I asked him. And I will preface this by saying this sergeant was not that much younger than me. But when I said, do y'all still have any of those carbon copy forms? He said, the what? I will pause for laughter. But the sergeant that was in the room with him, I was on speakerphone. There was an older sergeant in the room with him who started laughing. And so I called to him and said, hey, do you know where they are? And he goes, yeah, I'll go find them. He did find some. He made photocopies of them and just handed them out to all the officers. And that's what they had to do for about 9 months because they did not pay the ransom. They just chose to rebuild the system. And that took 9 to 10 months. And it was about 9 months of them having to do handwritten reports, no access to their computers, and bring them into us. When I tell you the new kids thought it was the weirdest thing in the world having these officers coming in and out of dispatch, it was hilarious that, they had to see more officers than they had seen in their entire careers because they were having to physically come in and bring us reports. So that's one of my kind of doing business continuity before I even knew what it was. That was not an established practice. That was just me being old enough to remember how things used to be. The other thing that I like to talk about is the relationships that I developed while working in healthcare. We had a very strong relationship at Children's Health with our facilities team, our engineering team, our safety teams. And because we had such a strong relationship there, it really led to better outcomes. We had one man that used to work there who was a project manager for the infrastructure, critical infrastructure. He was an engineer in his prior life, or I'm sorry, a electrician in his prior life. He knew every single wire, ATS, UPS system in that entire hospital like the back of his hand. All I had to do for exercises was call him and say, I would like a complete power outage, including generator outage for this floor. And he would say, give me a day or two. And he would come back to me with an actual schematic of what lines, what it would affect, what systems it fed into. He would have the whole thing written for me. And it was amazing. And there were a few times that he actually used the exercise that we put together for his electricians to test their knowledge. So we really had a great relationship with each other. And because of that, my exercises were unique. They were more plausible. And I did get pushback from a few of the nurses that would say, well, that couldn't really happen. We couldn't really lose the generators like that. Oh, yeah, we can. We absolutely can. Is it super possible? No, but it's plausible that we could. So let's think about it. On the other side of that, he would call me if anything was happening. If they had planned outages, he called me to make sure that I couldn't think of anything from a business continuity perspective that might be affected by that outage. And I will tell you, he would do a lot of the legwork himself. Go ahead, Dr. Jones.
Now I
If
was
you
going
have
to
something.
jump in. No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut in, but
No,
it
go
got me
for it.
thinking. So I worked at a large healthcare organization many years ago, and you mentioned relationships. So I took the time to build relationships with some external entities around the our facility. We did a it was a we manufactured medications and did some inventorying of stuff there as well. So I bring up relationships building is I set such a good tone with those folks that they, like to your point just a few minutes ago, they actually would call me
Yes,
when things were happening that might impact us. And just for that
absolutely.
being that proactive setting the tone, getting
Yes,
really good and well kind of versed with the folks that you need to work with when
yes.
things go wrong. Do that ahead of time. It will come back and help you. So I just had to chime in. Sorry.
No, I appreciate it because you are proving my point for me. When you take the time to really build those relationships beforehand, we say in emergency management, especially, we shouldn't be trading business cards in the field during a tornado. We should have built those relationships so that we are just a phone call away and we're already working with each other. And like I said, to that end, Joe called me one time and told me we had 4 towers in this hospital. And he goes, "Hey, we have to do preventative maintenance on this Saturday night, and we're taking the entire of B Tower down." Most of it was clinics, but the bottom floor of it was our ER. And so that was oh no. And he goes, "Don't worry, I've already taken care of the ER." So he had already also done the back work to make sure that the ER would never lose power. But my piece of it that he was asking, is there anything in B Tower that is going to have power overnight? I wasn't quite sure, to be quite honest. I knew that there were clinics in there, but I didn't know if any of them were there overnight. And so I walked the floor, went floor to floor, had to introduce myself to a lot of people, told them what was happening. Most of them said, "Nope, we're clinical only. We're here Monday through Friday, 8 to 5." And it was also a chance for me to go, okay, well, they're going to take power out over the weekend. So please make sure, maybe boot down your computers on Friday so you don't lose anything, all that. But we came across one department and they said, "Oh yeah, we're here 24/7." And it was our psych department. We didn't have a full like psych ward, but we did have a psychology department that was needed to be nearby the ER in case they had any psych calls come in, so that they could get there quickly. And there was someone there 24/7. So that was a very last minute having to find some place near enough to the ER, but not on the same feeds that the tower was on, so that they had a place to work out of, and that they could quickly get over to the ER when needed over the weekend. And even that, my boss, my VP, who had been there for 20 some odd years, when I went to her with the list of people that she was going to meet with to kind of explain the project, she goes, "Oh, why is this doctor on here, the head psych there?" And I said, "Because they have a clinic in B Tower." And she goes, "Yeah, but that's just the clinic." And I go, "No, they're there. They're there 24/7." And she goes, "I had no idea." And she had been, a trauma nurse there for years. She had no idea they had someone there 24/7. So it was one of those things that, we all learn from. And when we start building those relationships, I knew from then on out, if anything happened in B Tower, who I needed to go to, and I was able to start prioritizing who we went to. So those are just kind of my quick little stories highlighting the trust and the relationships that you build, and how important that is. So I'm going to pause here just a little bit in case anybody else wants to share, whether you're having difficulty with relationships or if you've built those successfully. If anyone wants to jump in, let me know.
Not seeing any hands raised.
All right. Well, then we can absolutely move on.
Okay.
All right. So I just gave our key takeaways there: importance of relationships, role of trust. I didn't really talk about this a whole lot, but understanding interdependencies. I will tell you, in the hospital, that was absolutely crucial. And I talk about the hospital a lot. That was where I got into emergency management, and I feel, or into business continuity, and I do feel like it was a cornerstone of my education because it was a can't fail environment. If we failed, there were patient outcomes and lives tied to it, right? So I do feel like that was the best place, and it has influenced how I have moved forward with the way that I work in business continuity. Because I had to take time to understand what every little thing meant. If we lost water in the hospital, nobody in the NICU cared because babies don't need water. But if we lost water and we had doctors in the middle of surgery, that could greatly influence their outcome because of humidity in the OR. We also had an end stage renal department. They had to have water for dialysis. And it wasn't as easy as saying, well, they can't come here, so we'll just send them to, a DaVita dialysis center or something, because only a few places will do pediatric dialysis. One of them, we were in the Dallas area. One of them was our Fort Worth partner at Cook's Children's. But if they weren't available or couldn't take all of our patients, we would have to actually transport those patients ourselves to Dell Children's in Austin. Those of you that aren't familiar with Texas and how big it is, that's at least a 3-hour drive, maybe less the way I drive, but at least a 3-hour drive, or about an hour long flight. And we did have fixed wing and rotary aircraft ambulances. So it was a very big deal if we lost water for our ESRD. But like I said, understanding those interdependencies was crucial. And it got to the point there where if something went down, I became the first person that people would talk to find out, hey, this has gone down. Who do we need to worry about first? So those are my key takeaways for that. So now we move on. I feel like I've drilled this a lot, but how this continuity framework needs to be human-centered. We don't want to fall into the checkbox trap. So many places treat this as we just need to do this for compliance and get it off of our agenda, right? This should be viewed as an ongoing organizational practice. This isn't a one-time thing. These should be being reviewed annually or biannually at the very least. We when we did these, when we actually built these plans, and I continue this to this day, that I ask questions. It probably helps that I came from a dispatch background, that I have no problem being nosy. I like to ask, well, if that failed, who would it matter to and why? Does anybody really care if this happens? Okay. And then when this does happen, what do you do? That was a big one in the hospital because we had some plans that had been written for compliance before I came along. But when I did come along, I found out that a lot of them were kind of boilerplate things that were never changed. A lot of people, once I actually started really getting into the weeds with them, started going, well, why is this in here? We don't do that. A great example of that was one of the plans, or I should say all of the plans on the clinical units said, if we lose power, we need to get ice and stick it in a cooler. But it didn't say what to do after that. That's all it said was, if power goes out, get some ice, put it in a cooler, ice from the freezer into the cooler. And as I went from plan to plan to plan, I kept asking each unit, do y'all do this? Is there a reason why? And everyone would say, no, we have no idea. I would have people coming to me first and saying, why is this in here? We don't do this. And I go, I don't know. It got to the point that it kind of became my thing that I would start, going down the list of here's what we've got here. Oh, don't worry about the ice in the cooler. If y'all don't use that, we're just going to take it out. Until 18 months into the job, I got to one of our heart centers and I said kind of the same way, hey, there's a thing in there about putting ice from the freezer into the cooler if we lose power. I don't know what it means. And she goes, oh, well, that's for our medications that need to be refrigerated. And it was the biggest duh moment for me. Like, of course it is. And I even told her it has been 18 months and nobody has thought of that or brought it up. I turned around and called all of the departments that we had talked to. Most of them didn't have refrigerated medication that they kept like that. But I guess the Heart Center had a few. So that was something they did. But it's one of those kind of things that you learn that was just in there and was overlooked by so many people that didn't do it until we found the one person that did. Okay. So this to me is another super important part. Clear role definition. I don't know how many of y'all have been looking at jobs here lately. I kind of am always looking around, seeing what people are doing and what they're hiring for. And one of the things that drives me absolutely batty is these plans that say rights, plans, rights, BIAs, rights. That is not what we do, in my opinion. And it's not what we should do because we are not the experts. When I talk about building these relationships, we are building those relationships with the experts. These are their plans, and it should reflect what they do. I always say I am the expert in how these plans should be developed on the governance, on the exercise, on the maintenance cycles, not the operational execution. That's where they are. So I am very big on letting them know these are your plans, you own them. If something in here doesn't make sense to you, then there's no point to have it in here. But I also tell them we will not write this for you because we do not work in your department and we don't understand your processes. Now, it's gotten to where when you do build those relationships and you have these discussions, you learn a lot. I learned so much from working with Joe the electrician, but I'm not an electrician and I couldn't have built a continuity plan for our engineering department, right? So these plans, these relationships, they should all be developed deliberately and in parallel to ensure effective continuity management. The other reason I really push on this one is when these departments take ownership of those plans, I feel like they do a better job with them. They want to make sure that it's reflecting what they actually do. I would always tell them, you should write this so that the person you hired last week could pick this up and know exactly what to do. Is that actually going to happen? No, but it could. And it's something that, in an emergency, wouldn't it be easy enough to hand it off to someone, say, turn to page whatever and call this list of people? I need you to do this. Here's where you would find it. So that's kind of my quick little spiel, my soapbox on what we do versus what they do and where the ownership lies. I also like to say we're kind of one of those jack of all trades, master of none. Well, we're a master of one, and that should be the plan development, governance, exercises, maintenance. And we should know a little bit about what all of these departments do, but we're not the experts and we're not writing their plans for them. And on that controversial note, I will open the floor up if there's anybody that wants to kind of jump in and give their 2 cents or talk about anything that we've discussed over the last few minutes.
Any questions?
Nothing?
No hands are
Okay.
up? Okay.
Okay, great. All right. So I kind of got into this just now, but the next thing that we really want to do is the real work insights. We need to understand how the work is truly done rather than relying on what they document or what they assume that we do. This or what we assume that they do. This is another reason where it's very important to ask for a continuity working group. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a manager or a director, both here in education, in my time in tech, in my time in the hospital, that they would say, "Oh, I'll just write it. It's easy. I'll get it done. It's faster." I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the people that are actually doing the work. I want to talk to the boots on the ground. So the other thing I would always tell them is, and I would push back. I've had people say, "I'll just do it," over and over again before I said, we cannot allow you to just do it. You must have a continuity working group. That is part of, and I would kind of throw this out there, our policy of how this works. Each department needs a continuity working group. And I would also, of course, give them we need insights because you don't do things the same way that, Bob does. And Jill has a completely different function within your department that she's going to think about things differently. So we want a good continuity working group and we want to understand what work is truly being done. And a lot of times this is helped just by asking the question, why? Why do you do things this way? How? How are you actually processing things? It's just asking questions. It's just being nosy. And it makes people think about what they actually do. Same thing with mapping interdependencies. I would sit there and stare at a blank interdependency page and ask people, who do you rely on every single day? And I would be surprised how many people, especially in the hospital, would not say security. They rely on security officer every single day. Every single day, most departments would have some need for security, would have some need for our health tech management. So we would sit there and really talk through those things. And if they couldn't come up with anything, I would ask them, if such and such equipment failed, who are you calling? If somebody started yelling at you, who are you calling? We would just ask these questions. And I guess that's kind of what I keep coming back to. And I keep saying, be nosy, ask questions. Um, that was kind of one of the things whenever I would train a new person that I would have to get them past, is them feeling like, well, that's none of my business, or that's the way they do things. Well, it is our business. Make it our business. um, Using technology, we want to be purposeful. One of the things that you hear going around a lot right now is the ethical use of AI. That's essentially what this is. Use it purposefully. Dr. Jones said he's going to be doing a webinar on AI usage. I love it. I think AI is great if we're using it ethically and if we are verifying what we're getting from it. And that goes for the use of AI. It goes for the use of any of these, software that we get inundated with. Make sure that it's enhancing what you're doing instead of replacing it, because no machine, no software, no anything can replace human decision making and problem solving, right? So we do want to use it. It is great. It is a fantastic tool. It just doesn't replace that human touch. And that's, again, why I always come back to that human centered framework. All right. So this is where I should say we could actually really get into our Q&A section. When I do this live, in a conference or something, this is kind of our how we start out our Q&A, our applied reflection and discussion. So these are kind of questions that I would like for y'all to think about, sit with. Are your current continuity plans being written by the people who do the work or for them? How confident are you that those departments could execute their plans without you present? Do the plans reflect how the work actually happens or how it's assumed to happen? Which departments truly know who you are and how you work and not just your title? That's a big thing where I'm currently at. And one of the things that we are doing is, this is a college. We have videos that everybody has to watch yearly. The how to use a fire extinguisher, where are the AEDs, how to sign up for CPR. We have all these videos. We're not in any of them. And so right now we're developing a video that is just us, and it's kind of tying all of those together, but I'm calling it a why it's important, while also spreading the message that preparedness is everyone's responsibility. And I am making myself and the rest of my team be in it to quickly introduce themselves and discuss, a line or two of why this matters and why it's important and how to find out more information. And a lot of that is just, I want people here to understand who we are and what we do. And the reason this came up is because I have one team member who works on all the, he goes and constantly is tracking our AEDs and checking them across all 7 campuses we have. And he was telling me the other day how much he gets mistaken for a janitor. And nobody has any idea who he is or what he does. So that's part of it is, people need to know who we are and not just what our title is. They need to know us. So moving on, what expectations are placed on you that you feel misaligned with your authority or capacity? Did you come into your job being told, hey, you're going to write all these plans? That's a bit misplaced to me. What part of continuity work feels the most frustrating or isolating in your role right now? And this might be the thing that we want to talk about. I have no problem turning this into a quick little gripe session. But also, what support, either formal or informal, would make the biggest difference in your ability to do this work well? So again, if anyone wants to come on uh, come on screen and talk, let us know.
So, Vanessa, you
Yeah.
mentioned Q&A. So I've been monitoring, and there's
Yes.
nothing there as a question. I will say, though, Austin Arnold wrote, Vanessa, I started as a dispatcher as well in emergency
Woo!
management classes. I said there was no way I'd be in BCM. Look where I am now. So just wanted to
But
share
you know
that.
why? You know why dispatchers make good BC? Because we have to do everything with nothing.
There you go.
We have CADs that are going down all the time. We've got calls we got to dispatch with no officers. We are like, we truly are kind of that born and bred business continuity professional. And so many of us don't even know that there's a word for what we do. So I am all about dispatchers coming out from under the headset and into our industry. That's fantastic.
We have a question here from Rich.
Go ahead, Rich.
So it was a comment to the support in the formal or informal. I'm at a very large pharmacy. It's the largest pharmacy you never heard of. We are owned by venture capitalists, and we've got about six different brands under one umbrella. So
Oh,
it
wow.
makes what we do very fun. I've been here a whole year and a half. I'm the security and compliance guy. However, nobody else did this, so I did it at my former life and do it. You brought about having a working group. I think that is so important because you cannot know, even in a small company, you can't know everything everywhere, and
No,
nobody knows everything in this business anyway, right?
exactly.
My greatest blessing was I was able to talk our COO, who's a believer, into being the business leader. So I chair the group, but I have him as a business leader, and then I also have different people from each one of the business units, the 14 business units that are there, and the subunits under them. So it's a large group, but it's manageable, and having that COO who's a believer there really helps make a big difference.
Yes, it absolutely does. And you actually brought up a really great support system there, either formal or informal, having that, for lack of a better word, corporate sponsor, whether it's an official, piece of their title or not, having someone that's at the executive level is is absolutely key because that's someone that is speaking up for you when you're not in the room and in conversations that you may not be able to be a part of. So, yes, that is absolutely great. Anyone else?
There is a question in the chat. A question when appropriate. Can you explain the difference between ITDR and BCM? My company is a mature software company, privately owned, that has
Mm-hmm.
BCM plans, but not ITDR plans. They try to use BCM to replace ITDR plans. Any advice?
So, no, I am with you. Those are two wildly different beasts in my mind. Um, they're, I say wildly different. They're cousins, right? They are sort of related, but not really. I think of business continuity kind of in two different ways, and I guess it probably depends on the company that you work at. Some companies do kind of wrap all of it into one package and say it's both IT, DR, but also what I refer to as facility based. I am not an IT person. I work mainly in facility based. I do, however, think that a lot of what you're doing is the same thing. You're trying to plan redundancies, you're trying to make sure that there are no disruptions. And if there are, that you have plans on how to combat those, right? So that's kind of where the similarities start and stop for me. But yeah, ITDR, you are focused mainly on recovery from some sort of disruption as far as whether it's intentional or unintentional, ransomware, or just your run of the mill software broke down kind of thing. Whereas facility based, is looking at the physical environment that you're in. And funny enough, I think that's kind of one of the things that's more commonly overlooked right now. People are more concerned about the cybersecurity, and rightfully so. But I will tell you one of the challenges that I have here at my current, and I think this is probably true of a lot of people in education. What did we learn from COVID? We learned that we don't have to be on campus, right? We can do our work from home. We can teach classes from home. Kids can, I'd say kids, students can learn from home. That has made it supremely easy to me for colleges to say, oh, something broke down. We're going remote today. Um, I actually went to college. This is a community college. I went to college. I started out my education here um, at Dallas College 25 years ago. Nobody do the math on my age. Um, when I first started way back when, it wasn't, it was computerized, but not overly so. You know, we were kind of in that early 2000s, half paper, half computer. So when I walked in to my campus, they handed me a sheet of paper and said, here, fill this out. And that was, you know, my registration, my name, my address, all that good stuff. And they said, great. When I was done, take this sheet of paper over to the advisor and tell him what classes you want to take, and he'll write them down for you and boop it into his computer that he has. Um, if our registration system goes down now, that's it. The campus closes for the day. They tell you to go to another campus. They tell you to come back another day, something like that. That was the first thing that stuck out to me because we are in Dallas County. A lot of our student, you know, demographic is more uh, socioeconomically challenged. Somebody could have taken two buses to get to our campus to then been told our system is down, come back another day. We're going to lose that student and they're going to lose their future essentially if we don't keep them there. So it's very important to me that we have started looking at going back to the paper ways and not just automatically going to, oh, we're just going to shut down for the day. Don't shut down for the day. Go find those registration forms. Go find those advising forms. Tell people, hey, write down what classes you want to take. When we come back up, we'll look into this and we'll give you a call. We'll send you an email. We'll do something, but take care of who you have in front of you. So that's kind of what I think of more from the education on the practical side. Because it's so easy to go remote, we jump to it where we should be taking care of our physical, you know, facilities where we should be thinking about. We have campuses all over the place. If we have a flood in one building, just move it to another, right? So I hope I answered your question.
So I've got two more in the
Yeah.
Q&A. One's a comment, one's a question. So Jamie Blair writes, one of the biggest challenges in business continuity is highlighting risk when a team consists of only one person. The lack of a backup resource clearly demonstrates the vulnerability of having a single point of failure. Also, I started as a dispatcher, paramedic,
Yeah.
to government sector EM. So cool. We got
Absolutely love it.
dispatchers in the house today. Okay, here's the question from Alexander Soto. This sounds like a full-time function. Who from our current audience are doing this in-house versus hiring a third-party company like an insurance broker to facilitate the work?
That is a really good question. I have honestly never really thought about that. I worry what sort of project you would get using a third party company like a broker or something like that. We do have a lot of consultants. Shout out Dr. Jones. We do have a lot of consultants, and I think that's great. But I think, and Dr. Jones, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the idea there is to um, help your in-house facility more so than taking it over completely.
Yep.
That's the way I would look at it. But Dr. Jones, you might give
No,
your
I'll
insight on
I'll
that.
just add to that. That's I'm totally with your comment there. I think the biggest issue sometimes is that consultant comes in, does the work. It's so important to kind of like instill that like institutional knowledge or whatever so that they can keep going and lead it. Nothing worse than doing great business continuity work, trying to build resilience, and then the minute you walk away, it's
Yeah,
that stuff's
that's it.
lost. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's the transition, the education upon leaving the engagement is really important. I'll just say
yeah,
that.
yeah. So that's. I'm glad to know that I wasn't thinking of it the wrong way.
Oh, yep, yep.
But no, I absolutely think it should be a full-time role, depending on where you work and how intricate and matrixed your business or industry is. It requires an entire team. I am in like I said, a large community college. We have about 130,000 students across 7 campuses, as well as various centers that we may or may not teach out of. Some are community centers, some are actual like workforce education centers. Um, I am pushing right now. I have a team of 6, and I really need one person on every single campus that I have, because something that's important to know about our college is we are one college now, but we previously were a district, and each college was separately licensed, and it previously had its own emergency manager, um, before my time. But when it was merged into one college, they got rid of some of those redundancies. And we're seeing now where the preparedness has suffered because of it. So that's one of the things that I'm pushing for now is a bigger team, precisely for that reason. We all know that emergencies start and end at the local level. It's the same with continuity. It starts and ends at the local level. It's hard to know what your most important things are, what your interdependencies are, when you're not on every single campus every single day, and it's physically impossible to be.
Yep. So we're in the last 5 minutes. So I'm going to
Okay,
turn it over to Mike for a few
absolutely.
announcements, and then I'll close it out.
Awesome.
Oh, before you do, I think we just got one more from the in the
Oh, great.
chat there.
Let's see. Would totally agree regarding full-time roles. I have the same issue with companies who simply hire as a short-term contract role each year to simply update plans. As Bernie said, once they're gone, that knowledge is gone and someone else has to build it up. So yeah, that can't can't say it enough how important that transition is, how important what you leave as far as documentation is understandable, easy to follow. But yeah, I mean, nothing worse than building resilience and then walking out the door and it just plummets. So you don't want that kind of
Yeah.
situation. All right. Take it away, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, Vanessa. That was a great presentation. We appreciate everybody showing up. And while you're here, we would love to encourage you to visit continuityinsights.com. And while you're there, check out continuityinsights.com/CIMC. And that will give you the information about the next conference that we're holding, the CIMC 2027, and that's going to take place in Chicago. That's May 3rd through 5th, 2027. And right now, we have a call for presentations out. So if you are interested in presenting at the event, you could enter your idea for a presentation there. You could also register for the event. And also, we just want to put it on your radar generally. So next May 3rd through 5th, that's 2027 in Chicago, the Continuity Insights Management Conference, and you can learn more about it, continuityinsights.com/CIMC. And I just want to say thanks again to both Dr. Jones and Vanessa Lewis. Great presentation, and we look forward to another next week, which I'm sure you're going to tell us more about now.
Yes. But before I do, huge shout out, Vanessa. Fantastic job. Thank you for uh, just stepping up and your willingness to present. I mean, the essence of our SIGs are these webinars and these a chance for us to engage and just have great discussion, and you did a wonderful job today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I do just want to throw out, I don't know if the presentation is still up. I flipped
Yeah,
ahead to the last page. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out at any time. The QR code goes to my digital card. It's got my email, phone number, all of that on there. Happy to reach out, for people to reach out if they have any questions or need help.
great. And as I mentioned earlier, the kind of rundown, we're doing a webinar each month. So just next week, next Wednesday, July 29th, our Healthcare SIG will have a webinar entitled Healthcare SIG Roundtable Panel Discussion, Topics in Healthcare Resilience. This roundtable panel will focus on current challenges in the healthcare resiliency, the impact of AI, and the general threat landscape. So again, like we just enjoy having content to our specific SIGs each month. And I'll make sure to also get this grid out to everyone as well, which kind of lets you know what's upcoming. And again, thank you all for joining us. The recording presentation will also be shared. And it's again webinars like this, a chance to get to talk amongst our peers and to have a great dialogue and talk about these topics is what makes these webinars and this engagement so important. So kudos to you as well for joining us today to be a part of this. And I love Vanessa's format. It was really great engagement and being dynamic and having a discussion. And thank you, Mike, for facilitating the hands raised and everything else. It all worked really well. So all good. So I think we can close here. We'll be in touch with all these the resources and artifacts. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you on the next one next week. So thank you.
Thank you.